generation, most of us know what it is to live through times of economic instability, sadly, war and terrorism, social injustice, and even a global pandemic. Across the globe, we witness humanity at odds with itself. People wielding violence, some in the name of power and domination, others in the name of God. The brokenness that we see in the world around us can cause us to feel overwhelmed, to lose hope. For centuries, God's people have cried out, "How long, O Lord?" And still the question remains. It remains unanswered. In our longing for our and the world's suffering to cease, we may ask, when will Christ's promised reign of peace come? And in this season of Advent, how does the weary world rejoice? In our lesson from Isaiah, we hear as the prophet calls out to God, pleading for God to relent his anger and to look with forgiveness upon his children. Isaiah pleads and appeals to God to restore and to reshape his people like a potter working clay in his hands. Israel suffers. Their world has fallen apart, the temple is in ruins, and the people have felt God's wrath and God's absence. And so it's with great reverence that the prophet comes and asks for mercy and that God might deliver God's people from the depths of their brokenness. Within our psalm, we hear the same sentiment. Restore us, O God. Show the light of your countenance, and we shall be saved. Fast forward to today, right here and now, and this is still the prayer of God's people. The prayer that God's promise of salvation and peace may quickly come. But when? I don't know about you, but sometimes it can feel like the end of the world is coming. Jesus himself talks about it. He talks of the stars that will fall from heaven, the darkening of the sun, fiery devastation, all signs of the end times. He tells of the earth and humanity's shattering events to come that will devastate individuals and families, communities and nations. We all know too well the pain and the hopelessness we feel when any part of our human family suffers. Now, some may point to these things as a sign of the end. But Jesus calls for caution. Michael Toy, a PhD candidate in religious studies, notes, "It is impossible to fix our eyes on the moment of the Christ's return. And so we remain in uncertainty, in unknowing. And in that uncertainty, the invitation that is before us is to fix our eyes upon the one thing that we can, the person and the promise of Jesus." In her 4-part poem called Sometimes, poet and Episcopalian Mary Oliver offers simple instructions on how we might live a life present to God, especially one in which we encounter God in the moment, even as we anticipate that unknown someday to come. And she suggests this: pay attention, be astonished, and tell about it. There's much going on in the world around us that is worth noticing. Things that would take our breath away if only we would pause to pay attention. How might your lives be enriched if you were to intentionally choose to take time to connect with God as you seek and soak in the beauty and the rich complexity of humanity and all creation? you might be awed. Darn, you might even be astonished. Now today, we enter into this beautiful blue Advent season, a season of anticipation, of reflection, and of intentional noticing as we make ourselves ready for Christ's coming and for Christ's coming again. Jesus says to us, beware, keep alert, pay attention. But honestly, sometimes it's really hard to stay present. We can become unconscious of God. The weariness of the world, the life concerns that we carry can overwhelm us, and they leave us tired and weary and numb. They disconnect us from God, and we're short of energy and hope. Essentially, we walk around asleep. In such a state of spiritual unconsciousness, we may lose sight of Jesus and the hope that he brings. It's into our slumber that Jesus sounds the wake-up call. Be alert, be ready. For yes, heaven and earth will pass away. Nations will battle nations. People will act out. But my words, he says, my words will not pass away. Christ's words are ours to claim. They are there to guide and to comfort us. They are there to assure us, especially in times when we feel fearful or uncertain. His words are like a balm for a weary world, and they call us to take notice, to be conscious of God's presence, and in our noticing, to be astonished by all that God has done for us and through Jesus. And then Jesus invites us to take that astonishment that we hold and to transform it into gratitude, and with hopeful anticipation to tell of it, to herald the good news of Christ's coming into the world. Like the fig tree, which has no idea at all of when summer will arrive, yet springs forth leaves in anticipation of its drawing near, we cannot know when Christ will return. Near is as close as we get. But we can imagine. We can anticipate. We can hope. And so, in this first week of the Advent season, I invite you to pay attention, to look around and be astonished, and then to share your astonishment with others. Take notice of God's nearness to you. Take notice of each other. And with gratitude and wonder, with your eyes and your ears and your hearts and your mind, bear witness to God at work in the world. Hold tight to the hope of Christ's return, when, without a doubt, we will surely be astonished.